Think of a time when you experienced a conversation that left you with a new perspective, or perhaps an inquiry, or you might have felt that something has shifted in you after that conversation. Maybe it helped you gain a new level of clarity, or moved you to take action. That was a coaching conversation. Hello and welcome to the Coaching Conversation. This is your host Salah Al-Laythi, and I am here with Dr. Bethanie Hansen. I'm really excited about this interview. Bethanie has a lot of experience in coaching as well as teaching, and really wanted to learn more about her journey. And we have a theme today that we're going to just discover as we talk. So welcome, Bethanie.
Thank you, Salah. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts.
You also host your own podcast called Mindset for Life.
I do, yes. Some coaching ideas about mindset and thinking. And I also have a second podcast about online teaching, but that's a whole other thing. So yeah.
That's awesome. So how's your journey been? What's the story? What brought you to coaching?
My journey's been like the last 25 years. Really, I've only been a coach officially for a few years, but I entered my career to be a public school music teacher. And in teaching music, you're often teaching band. That was my goal, be a band director. And I did do that for 20 years. What I didn't know was that the way I taught was actually much like coaching. I was all about developing young people and teaching music second, the person first, the skill afterwards. So my greatest focus was always to help people become the best version of themselves in whatever they were doing, and also to grow character while they were learning music at the same time. That seemed to make the music more meaningful too. It was a lot of value. And then I entered higher education, 10 or 12 years ago, and eventually I started working at American Public University, which is an entirely online school, and I worked there full time, and I coach part-time outside of that now. But in that job, there was a fantastic director there who decided to introduce coaching formally. And so we actually had a program that was about 60 hours of the ICF approved type of content. And so I went through that coaching program, and afterwards realized I loved that so much. I just wanted a lot more. So I pursued a second coaching program and got my actual ICF certification. And now I'm a PCC level coach. So I coach a lot of folks in education and in business. And also I'm a director full time at a university.
This is a lot of experience in coaching, even though you said you just started like a few years ago. But you said, a lot of times teaching and coaching can be very similar depending on how you approach teaching. So what inspired you to become like a full-fledged coach or to go on the coaching journey and continue to pursue it further?
Honestly, it really just resonates with the way I am as an educator. And with that background, I always wanted people to observe their own performance, hear their own performance, give feedback on what they thought about how they did. Did it measure up to what they wanted? What did they notice about it? And be able to be objective enough so that they weren't just relying on feedback from a teacher, but could be somewhat self-directed and driven. So coaching really just resonates with that idea I have as an educator. The other thing, though, is I mentioned this was introduced initially in my director role as a manager of people, a supervisor of people. And I noticed that the more I took a coaching approach with those I work with in helping them to improve or to recognize what's going on in performance, the more they actually got involved, cared, and owned it, and actually made their own improvements. So, you have this typical top-down manager approach that often happens where you'll walk in and kind of give the feedback and say, all right, this is good, this is bad, fix it, or whatever. But in a coaching approach, you have the space to say, what are you trying to achieve here? And how's that going? Is it lining up with the company's objectives or with those standards that we're all trying to perform to? Most of the time, people are spot on about their own performance and they just need the space to articulate it. And then pretty soon they're setting their own goals. So doing it in practice as a manager, just using a coach approach and then formal coaching structures, that's honestly made the biggest difference in my own leadership. So I'm attesting to the fact that it absolutely works with people, but also I've been coached a lot myself by others. And I still have two people that I coach with weekly who we coach each other. And I've just totally seen so much growth in my own life that I also believe coaching is transformational.
You reminded me of when I first started on my coaching journey and I was taking during the coaching training in class, the very first class, the leader of the training said, like, if you're not willing to be coached, then it's going to be hard for you to coach someone. So it's always like, as you coach someone, you learn about yourself and then you start to work on yourself as well. So it's almost like this double learning loop that is happening between the coach and the coachee, and help and growth for both people.
Yeah, Salah, you are absolutely right. And I appreciate you saying that you heard that too. I was told that in coach school myself, like you better live it or you can't do it.
Mhm.
And I just wondered, so what are your thoughts about coaching?
I really, like you said, the idea of helping people grow and advance and move forward, take action, or even just get some clarity around what is it that they really want to do, have been really appealing to me. And I have been doing it even without really being conscious until I started to get more deeper into coaching training and professional coaching and coach more people and get coached by more people. And so it's been like you said, I mean, it's transformational in terms of like just knowing about yourself and doing that, the inner work of what you want to do and where you want to go, and what are some of the things that you're telling yourself that may or may not be true. Most of the time it's not true. And it's funny because the way that you connected it to telling people versus self-evaluation, sometimes people are a lot more harder on themselves, or they know what's really happening. Instead of like someone telling them, here's what you need to do, you just allow the space for them to grow and to share what they think about what they're learning. There is the learning and coaching are very much, they complement each other, and the way that people learn, or I've noticed that the way that others learn is by reflecting, and they want someone to help them in that reflection.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Salah. I found myself telling someone in a coaching session one time what I thought, and I was just thinking, yeah, this is the solution. I made a comment like, have you considered this? Whatever it was. And the person listened and entertained it. Next week, no talk about that, no change. Following week, no talk about that, no change. We moved on to some other exploratory activity. I think we went through the character strengths or something like that, and a lot of reflection there. And all of a sudden, the person I was coaching said, I just realized, and they said that same thing that I was thinking a few weeks prior. It didn't matter that I thought it and thought, oh, this might be the thing, until the person actually recognizes it and speaks it. We just don't even digest or absorb what other people tell us or what someone can tell us. We really do have to recognize it ourselves.
I sometimes refer to this as the stuck cycle. Ask for advice, you get the advice, you don't act on advice, and then you ask for advice again. You don't act on advice, you ask for advice, and you just keep going, and you're not really taking any action. But I notice anytime it comes from someone else, sometimes it's not applicable, and sometimes you don't own what you need to do. So it's much better if you relied on your intuition and work with someone who can help you uncover what's happening internally and what's going on in your head. I know we wanted to talk a little bit about self-care, or finding out how do we step back. And maybe that was a good segue, because it's still talking about like stepping back and reflecting on what's going on. So as you're coaching your clients, how do you help them in that journey of like, okay, let's take a step back and reflect on what's going on?
Oh, that's a great question. Because one thing that the pandemic has definitely given everybody is the space to actually think about patterns in life. And is this really where I want to go? I've known a lot of people to sell their house and move somewhere else, or quit their job and get a different one. All kinds of things people have changed because they had the space to realize, whoa, maybe what I'm doing right now is not actually what I want long term. So that's an interesting thing. To step back, one thing I've done with clients is, if it's a difficult thing to figure out what's out of balance, we're thinking something about our wellness or our well-being is out of balance, but we're not really sure what. I honestly start with the wheel of life, which is every coach's like go-to tool, right? And I'll take the wheel and divide it and just ask him to could you put work in one spot, but what's all the rest of this? Do you have family? Do you have like exercise? Do you have your nutrition? What is it that makes up the rest of who you are? And a lot of times just starting there, whatever we're going to put in that space brings huge insight into what's low, what's high, what am I missing? Where am I over focusing? And a lot of times just the visual of drawing the lines in each of the spaces and figuring that out, a person will say, wow, I'm not doing any of this area and I'd like to. Let's just set that as the first priority. So they'll come up with it themselves, right? Because as we both said here, you can't tell a person and have them change, right? We have to decide for ourselves. I myself, I have 6 different areas that I look at for what I would call wellness, well-being. And if I do have a client that doesn't know how to break that down, I might suggest these 6 areas and say, well, how about these? And what might you add to them and which one would you change? And so those areas are your emotional, your physical, your spiritual, your social, mental or intellectual, whatever you want to call it, cognitive stuff. And the last one is creative. I'm noticing that one area of self-care that comes up a lot is we all want to create something, contribute something, like be distinct in some way. And it all has to do with what we're putting out. And that's what's getting stifled a lot of times. So yeah, the starting point is to kind of just take that assessment of what does it look like? And then secondary to that would be, where do I want to enhance that? What do I want to do with it?
It always comes back to this awareness. The first step as to become aware of what's going on, of what's happening. And before, like you said, we didn't have the time because it's always like, busy, busy, busy. And maybe just we didn't have a way to step back. Now with what's going on in the world today, people are stepping back and reflecting, is this what I really want to do going forward? Or is it something else? What's important? And that wheel of life is a great way to just surface what's important and where I want to focus my energy or my effort. So when you help the person find what's important to them, you're trying to help them figure out like where is the area that they need to focus on, what's out of balance, right? And that usually is exhausting when you're kind of like running on this cycle or wheel that is not aligned with what you really want, because you were focused on just one area and not paying attention to the rest of the other aspects of your life that might be important. So when you raise that level of awareness, what's the next step? What happens next?
Well, the next step would be to create some kind of a plan for that. But a lot of people shame themselves, like, oh, I should be exercising, I should be this or that. And then there's this whole other set of baggage, like, oh, now I'm shaming myself all the time, talking to myself in my head this way, and it makes it that much harder. So a lot of times I'll just share an idea like, what if this is exactly how you should be right now? What if what you're doing is exactly right for you right now? And what if you don't need to should exercise? What if it's okay not to exercise? Or if you're having like a real block about it and you really do want to exercise, but you're still doing that shame thing. Well, what if instead of exercising for a set time and a set number of days, what if you instead just decide, I'm going to be active today in some way, at least once, and it's going to be something I enjoy. So instead of counting it like this is exercise and making it like the villain, this taskmaster, it's like, what's going to bring me joy just moving my body around? Like that could be much more fun, right? I might go for a walk in the neighborhood, look at the fall leaves. I might go on the local trail and enjoy the scenery. I'm still going to exercise, right? But I'm not going to be like driving myself to meet 20 minutes or, this intensity or something like that. It's going to be a lot more enjoyable. So a strategy that's more accessible and much more pleasure driven, like let's enjoy what we're doing while we're refreshing instead of just like pushing it.
You're bringing up a really good point. So even before they move forward, there is this all guilt and shame that's happening. Like, I tried to do this and I know I need to do this or I should do this, but I'm not doing it. So I'm stuck now because I'm constantly feeling guilty or ashamed of what's happening. So it sounds like there is this self-acceptance that needs to happen first. I acknowledge and accept where I'm at today before I can do something about it. And that seems to be part of self-care as well, because if I'm constantly feeling guilty about something that I should do or I'm not doing, it's exhausting. It's hard to actually function or take an action or move forward. So that seems to me like there is a self-acceptance element is part of self-care. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Not only self-acceptance, but focus just on the present period instead of like, oh, how I used to be in shape in college or the way I used to be able to manage my time pre-pandemic. Because all that going back to other times and holding ourselves to some unrealistic expectation, that's going to make it very hard, right? So as you say, self-acceptance and also accepting like reality. We're in a time right now that isn't normal. Maybe it will stay this way forever, maybe not, but why not figure out how to thrive in this moment right now regardless of the boundaries that it presents. So, thriving would include that taking the time to recharge, rest, exercise, whatever it is that is lacking, and really give yourself mental space from whatever you're trying to go to every day and produce or create or work hard at. The other idea is, it's kind of like your subconscious brain is getting ignored here. We don't think a lot about our subconscious brain, but it's going to process a lot of the hard work we need to do and a lot of the ideas we need to come up with for our professional life or whatever, if we give it a break, and let it do its thing. So if we're always driving those thoughts and focused on productivity and we don't take the space to let it spin on its own in the background, those really great things that are going to come up for our ideas and the work we're going to do is never going to happen. It actually takes that recovery zone to let the subconscious brain take over. So, in a way, you could say, well, this self-care is a strategy for increasing your productivity and giving yourself that space away from it at the same time.
I noticed even before the pandemic, but it's mostly during this time, a lot of time I work with one-on-one with people and they come up with this, I want to take some time, I want to be more creative, I want to have more space. And it's somewhat at odds with what we used to believe, or the busier you are, the more productive you are. So allowing that space to be creative can actually, and that recovery time can actually add more productivity or add more value, not just at the individual level, but the company that they work for. So one of the things that comes up, gets in the way of this, is I don't have any time. There's no time. It's constantly doing stuff. There's no time for me to do self-care as a strategy or recover. So I continue to keep going. So what have you noticed to be a good way to kind of break that cycle of I need some time, but I don't have the time? And it's this constant dilemma.
That is the constant dilemma. It's not true that we don't have time for those things. We just believe it's true, right? So we're thinking, oh, I've got eight or 10 hours of work, then I've got the kids or I've got the whatever going on, and then I got to take care of the household, whatever the things are on our plates. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We're just thinking we don't have time because if your home work boundaries are skewed because you're working from home now, especially if you're not used to that, it can feel like there's this overwhelming pressure to work all the time because it's always interrupted. But the truth is that you're going to be more productive when you do take that time because you're able to focus more. So two things that have come up for some of my coaching clients that I've worked with are habit stacking and doing it first. So the doing it first would be no matter what time you get up, if the first thing you do, if your thing is exercise, you want to be active, well, maybe you're going to fit it into that first part of the day before your first phone call or your first meeting. Even if you think you have children at home and it's your job to get them out of bed, well, why not wait 15 minutes, run up and down your stairs or whatever it's going to take, right? So the doing it first, that one's pretty obvious. Either you're going to make a conscious effort to say, it's okay to be a priority in my own life. I give myself permission to do that because some reason we all think we need that permission, right? And then the second one of habit stacking would be what are you already doing where walking around could be part of that activity? Many of us are on Zoom calls and we think we have to sit in the chair and be on the video for every single Zoom call. But for some, you could actually declare on this particular call, I will be a photo and I'll be walking while I'm on the call. And maybe just choose one a day and go, okay, is there a call that I can afford to be not as physically present, on video? Even if I'm going to contribute speaking, I could be walking in my yard or inside the house, or in my case, on the treadmill in the corner of my office. Whatever it's going to take. I actually have had a couple of clients who've tried that approach and their whole team is doing it now. They've all declared a certain meeting will be a non-video meeting and they're all on Zoom, but they're all just using the audio function so they can be active. So it can spread too, right? So if you put yourself as a priority and you're a manager or a leader, pretty soon you're helping your whole team.
So there is a lot of things here, like the lead by example as a leader, but also as an individual level, do it first, which is, it's very similar to a concept I learned in finance a while back, is pay yourself first. Before you start to spend on expenses and stuff, set something aside. So before you start your day and just let the day run your schedule, be intentional. Do first the things that will help me take care of myself so I can be more productive. And I like this idea also about habit stacking, because you can combine or merge some of the things that you can do. So you can condense some of these areas. So there is strategy that can help us recover or self-care. What do you think, other than time, what have you noticed that can get in the way of not paying attention permission to that self-care and self-recovery?
Honestly, I think the best thing that like the biggest answer to that question is the whole permission thing. Like actually being okay, putting yourself first for whatever 45 minutes. We think that we need some kind of approval or acceptance from someone else or permission from someone else to make that suggestion. And I don't know if this is an experience you've had, but in my experience, many people around me as well were raised with this idea that you're going to take care of all the people around you and they're going to take care of you back, which means if you need a break or you need to go, have a treat or get your hair done or have a massage or whatever it is, someone else around you that loves you is going to suggest it and give you the time to do it. It doesn't occur to us that like we should do that for ourselves. We think, oh, our loved ones should be saying, mom needs a break or dad needs a break or, whoever it is in our life. But at some point, we become that person who has to say it to ourselves. And some of us just don't make that transition, right? I know I never did. And suddenly found myself thinking, wow, I gained a lot of weight putting everybody else first. And at some point, I lost almost 100 pounds about 5 years ago. And I've worked on maintaining that now and realizing I have to actually prioritize that. I can't wait for permission or have someone tell me it's okay. But that getting permission to set the work aside or the other people aside to focus on it, it's huge. It's built into cultures and it's kind of subconscious and we don't even realize we're doing it.
It sounds like this guilt or some sort of shame again, like I can't take care of myself because I have other things or other people to take care of. And it's like this metaphor of put the mask on first. Like if you want to help others, you have to be able to breathe and then you can help others. So there's a lot of elements of self-compassion, self-care and self-acceptance. And like you said, we're constantly waiting to get permission from someone else when it is us, in this case, that needs to give ourselves permission to do that. So this idea is very interesting because in coaching, we usually see that all the time. Before you take some action, you trigger all these inner critics or inner thoughts about what would other people think or what's going to happen if I do this. And I think maybe self-care is just the topic to a deeper problem, which is this idea of giving permission to take action or give permission to do something that we've always wanted to do. Do you see that with your coaching as well?
Oh, absolutely. And it does seem like we sort of obligate ourselves subconsciously. I have had a lot of clients say, I should be exercising. I should be sleeping more. I should be eating better. I should be doing all these things. And yet, where's that gap? Well, why aren't you? In fact, one of my clients actually asked that question. Okay, so you'd like to exercise more. You'd like to put yourself first and you recognize that this is what helps you be happy and do well. Why aren't you doing that right now? That's sometimes the powerful question where there's a couple of minutes of silence and we're going, why am I not? Nobody's making you not do it. But internally, the thought pattern is, oh, because I have to show up for you first and I have to take care of you first and I need to go to work and do this first. All that stuff seems so urgent. Yeah, it's a thing and it comes up time and time again with pretty much everyone. I don't think there's a human alive who doesn't think the urgent thing is more critical than what we think we should do for ourselves. Very normal.
When I first started this podcast, I recorded this short episode about trying to figure out why didn't I start the podcast? I got the microphone, I got this 2 years ago, and I haven't started. And it wasn't until I asked the question or thought of what's stopping you? What's stopping me from going forward, that I started to realize that I'm telling all these random stories in my head to not move forward. So like you said, we make these assumptions that, okay, I can't do this, or I want to do this, but I'm not really doing it, and I don't know what's happening. So that question of why are you not doing it, or what's stopping you from doing it, can bring more clarity around okay, yeah, it's actually not other people, it's me. So once you realize that, okay, this is something that I have control over, this is something that I can really take action on, have you seen people actually come to that realization that it's me now, okay, I'm going to take action? Or is there some sort of space that is needed to get to that point?
I'm not really sure the answer to that question. I think everybody's different. I mean, truly, some people need a lot more steps along the way because, if you look at theories of change, awareness is up here, preparing to change, right? And then we got to it's get ready to get ready. And then, okay, get ready to take an action. And then you can take an action. And other people, it's like the awareness is the only thing needed.
Yeah.
I'm aware and now I'm going to act. So I think it really is a tough question to answer that. For some people who maybe take a little longer to change, there's all this this idea around let's visualize what your day is going to look like when you do this. Let's imagine getting up and doing the 15 minutes. And let's just assume your kids are going to scream and shout and fall apart. Let's just like practice what you're going to say to yourself. Let's envision the whole like worst scenario that you think is going to happen. And let's envision you do fall apart at work because you're too tired now. And maybe we'll also envision it all goes perfectly. How about that? And it could be a range of anything, but let's just like go through all that rehearsal and envision ahead of time. And with other people though, one in particular, it was just about how do I make a new habit? Well, we're going to set the shoes and the shorts out the night before on the bathroom counter. When you get up to use the bathroom in the morning, you're going to see them sitting there and you're going to put them on. It's just going to be automatic and you've made it easy and visible, just like in James Clear says in Atomic Habits. Like if you put it in front of you, now it's undeniable. You're going to take action. There you go. So some people are more that way, right? You could just, let's design the habit, find a way to support it.
Some good signals or triggers that will help the person act or remind themselves to act. Establishing habits is not easy. And like you said, everyone is different, but it's how we can make it easier to start and to sustain, right? I'm familiar with Atomic Habits, and I also like the work of BJ Fogg about like tiny habits and how to just start very small, start with very little things that you can start with. And that could be the starting point. And if you don't do it, try again the next day, or, try again the next week, but don't let the guilt and shame sits in and then stop. That would be the end of it. So there is a lot to unpack when you're trying to help someone design a new habit. It's not just the taking action part. It could be that they just become aware and then they need to come to closure on this. Now I'm aware, it's good, but even though I'm not going to be able to do it, I shouldn't be constantly thinking about it and letting it making me feel guilty or that's something I should do. That comes up all the time. So what would be a starting point? I know you mentioned the Wheel of Life, some other tools out there. Are there any other tools that you use or can point to help someone become more aware about what is it that they need to focus on and what might get in the way?
I do use a handful of go-to tools. I'm a big believer in determining your values. And also I love the VIA character strengths. I really rely on those two things in my coaching. And part of the reason is to help clients celebrate and recognize all of the good things in their life and about themselves. Because instead of like, what do I want to get rid of? What do I want to let go of? What do I need to overcome? All that focus on the negative that shuts things down and sort of looks like lack. You start thinking about values and strengths and you're thinking about abundance and like, where can I go? And possibilities emerge. So these are good tools. I love them. But one in particular, and forgive me, but I don't remember the name of the author, but it's a Harvard Business Review article about managing your energy and not your time. That concept right there, especially tied to the idea of self-care and like, how can you feel good moving forward? That concept of looking at, well, what saps your energy during a typical day? What adds to it? And even just figure out, when are you at your best? Is it first thing in the morning? Is it afternoon? Are you a morning or an evening person? Those sorts of ideas, they can be very revealing. Like if you're trying to go like full out, work really hard at that time of day where you're at your lowest, and then you end up feeling depleted and weak, like, oh, I just really didn't make it right now. Well, there's probably a reason. It's not your time of day. Just like that's a great time to get up and take a rest and then come back when it is your best time of day. Planning around your own energy, that's a huge idea.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you're not managing time anymore. You're managing energy and you can actually feel great instead of feeling like shame and blame and criticism inside. So I think that tool more than any other, is very helpful and revealing.
Yeah, I remember reading that article a long time ago, and it was huge for me to understand like, okay, I'm trying to pack everything into a finite resource, which is time. But if I shift my focus on the energy and what gives me more energy, what fulfills me, what brings me joy, that's renewable. I can always recharge and become ready to take on the next thing that I need to work on. I noticed the clients I coach, I noticed that there was a pattern of, okay, I'm really exhausted. I don't have any energy. How do I recharge? And I thought about like putting something out there, exactly that two questions that you ask, what gives me energy and what saps my energy? How do I recharge? And just the exercise of noticing and paying attention to that can help us do more of what recharges us, give us more energy, and try to do less of what saps our energy if at all possible. Something that might not be possible for everyone, but at least how do we shift that balance from everything that's sapping the energy that's consuming us every day versus the things that we can do to recharge.
Definitely true. Well said.
I like that idea of the simple starting point. The wheel of life could be a tool, like you said. The also this idea of, okay, maybe I can just come up with, okay, what gives me energy and what saps my energy, and then start to think about ideas of, if I feel low on energy, what can I do? Which leads us to the question that we can explore last here is that, sometimes if you don't have a list of things that you know about, that you have quick access to, you can start to get overwhelmed. What should I do to recharge? It's like usually it's like there's this talk, they talk about like this Netflix decision fatigue or overload. You try to decide on what you're going to watch and then end up not watching anything, and you end up getting overwhelmed. So it's the same thing. If you have access to a list of what you need to do to recharge right away, then that decision is not going to get in the way. What do you think about that? Have you seen that as something that can help, just to recover faster?
Well, I definitely do. And that list is going to vary, right? Your list is going to look different than my list. But I'll just tell you, as a musical person myself, like I can put on those Sony noise canceling headphones with my favorite music turned up really loud. And in about 5 minutes, I'm going to be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that's not going to work. And it's even better if I'm walking on the treadmill at the same time that I'm listening to that music, because then I'm also getting that physical charge at the same moment. I think each of us has like something that brings us joy and happiness in a quick period of time.
Yeah.
For some people, it might be shut your eyes and think of the place you enjoy most. Maybe it's a camping spot in the hills or the mountain. Maybe it's a country that you visited where you really saw the beauty, and like the Philippines, the crystal blue water, the white sand. Whatever it is, a person just needs to come up with one, right? That is kind of portable. And for me, it's the music and the like take a walk idea. But for somebody else, it might be quiet, journal, have some herbal tea, or, connect with a friend on the telephone, talk to somebody else. Whatever that is, really, you only need to pick one and kind of have a go-to in a pinch. And then when you have a little more time, you could brainstorm what else brings me joy and happiness. And I can fit that into my self-care plan. Because I think it's all about like getting in touch with yourself, getting disconnected from all the other stuff that's driving you all the time, and really getting back to a sense of what makes me satisfied, happy, or even joyful for even if it's 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So something that someone I heard once called those plugins. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like putting your power cord into it and then coming back with a little more. So find a plugin. What is it going to be?
For me, sometimes it's writing, sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's just recording a podcast like we're doing right now, sometimes walking outside and exercise. So even it definitely varies from one person to the next, but it also varies for the same person depending on time of the day or maybe the situation that they're facing. Like sometimes I feel like, yeah, I like reading, I like writing, but what I really need is to just go outside for a walk or do some physical exercise. You're spot on, like asking, what do I need at this point of time? And the more you're self-aware, the more you can retrieve that answer faster or recover faster. So yeah, it all comes back to self-awareness. And it's not easy to become self-aware on your own. You need to do some sort of exercises, like you mentioned, the reflection exercises, or work with someone who can help you kind of unpack what's happening and help you learn more about what's going on. So is there anything else that you would like to share about this topic or anything else?
I really appreciate the opportunity to just visit with you and chat about it. I mean, it stirs up all kinds of thoughts. Like, I think I need to go for a walk after we're done recording this podcast. Like, appreciate the sunshine. There is some out there, so I'm loving that. But also, your closing comment just a second ago, how much we benefit from talking to other people, and in specific, like find a coach. Coaching is about let's take what's going right and make it even better. A lot of people think coaching is for fixing you, like you're broken, and that's just not true. You're functioning just fine right now. Even if you're falling apart, it's working. You're still functioning. functioning. So
Yeah.
let's just take what's going well and make it better. And a coach is a great way to do that. So that might be the next step if someone's looking for that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned that as a teacher, if you shifted focus or just to switch hat in some instance to a coach and try to apply that with your students and or learners, people you're teaching, it has a really transformational impact. That you're not trying to fix them, like you said. You're not telling them what to do. You're helping them become more self-aware and learn that way. Hopefully that idea catches on. maybe our next part 2 would be something about like how did you use coaching in your teaching as a professor and educator. So I really appreciate your thoughts and insight. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Salah. I've enjoyed visiting with you too.
Hey, thank you for listening. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or take action on. Remember, take action and get clarity, then repeat.